Good evening, everybody. This is Hayter Institute of Education. I'm Dwayne, and this is the Diploma of Alcohol and Other Drugs. And tonight we've got session 2 of HLTWHS006, Manage Personal Stresses in the Work Environment. Um, over the next few weeks, over the next few months, it's pretty much 2 week modules. Just quick 1 week next week, and then the next, just moving on through that. It's not until June we've really got a 3 week module, which means like this one, there isn't a lot to it, to the module. There's not a lot of research to do. There's not a lot of teaching to do for it. So it is a 2 week module. It's just when sometimes we get a 3 or 4 week module and it's been condensed into 2 weeks. That happens. And that means you might have an extra massive assessment to do, a role play that feels like it's huge. Or I've got like 3 weeks of content to put into 2 weeks, and it's difficult to pin it all down. So at the moment, we're okay. It's just running on through April and May, but it might pick up speed a little bit. So we'll just kick off with the acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, Hayden Institute of Education acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first inhabitants of this nation and the traditional custodians of the land on which we work, live, and study. We express our gratitude for the sharing of this land, our sorrow for the personal, spiritual, and cultural costs of that sharing, and hope that we may move forward together in harmony and in the spirit of healing. Pay our respect to all First Nation people and acknowledge elders past, present, and emerging. Obviously, we thank them for that. So just looking at housekeeping, the expectations that we have every week, just cameras on. If we're in the class, then just put your camera on and the same as everybody else. Microphones off, just so that it doesn't cause any interference, as that can happen. Class breaks, yeah, standard 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock with a few hours of study. Then we'll have a break, a couple of breaks right in the middle. Class participation, we just got to interact orderly and structured. So just use the emoticon, the reaction, icon underneath this video screen. We just wanted to keep everything respectful and logistically working. So we just looking after each other as well. No smoking, vaping, or drinking alcohol on camera, obviously. A bit like a work meeting or a TAFE class. Wouldn't be allowed there, wouldn't be expected, it wouldn't be normal. So we're not going to do it on camera. Equally with triggers, it could be a trigger for somebody, but with content in class, it could be confrontational, it could be problematic, intense class content. So just look after yourself. Don't feel weird. Just taking time out to grab some fresh air, water, walk around the house a little bit, just to be kind to yourself. It's important. And during the week, make time for other activities as well. Don't empty yourself doing anything and then have no time to put back into yourself or time to enjoy for yourself. That's important. So, perfect connection, segue, whatever it is. Monitoring a work-life balance. It's important to do the careful split of how much work is going on at home. You might not be expected to take work home. You might not take any physical work home, but the emotional load that you might take home is not seen, it's not paid for, but it still happens. And you end up taking a lot of stuff home with you when really work was meant to stay at work to look after you, really. Um, just sorry, trying to do two things at once, and I struggle to do one sometimes. So work related, speak to the supervisor to discuss workload, use deep breathing techniques potentially. When stress isn't happening, it feels weird to be potentially thinking about being in a stressful situation and then using breathing techniques then. Well, that would be weird because it wouldn't be coming from um, an automatic reaction rather than in a stressful situation, our physical sensations that might happen, they would be an automatic reaction, whether we get tense in the shoulders, whether we get a bit sweaty, whether our hands get a bit need to like de-stress, or we start to breathe a bit faster. If there's an automatic response that we've also got certain breathing techniques already in place that regularly during the day we're sitting down and we're using whatever different people call it. There's different methods, whether it's square breathing, whether it's triangular breathing, whether it's circular breathing. The deep in breath and then the slow out breath is helpful to calm our nervous system. If we're not already doing that anyway, then it's going to be difficult to bring that in as an emergency response when we do need it. And it's going to be most helpful. With the physical things, yes, sleep. They haven't put like the health triangle in there. They've only put sleep. And when we look at a health triangle, we're looking at enough exercise to give the body a stimulus every day and enough sleep to calm that down, and then enough healthy food, nutrition in the middle of all that to keep everything ticking over. And then obviously limiting caffeine. If we can't limit caffeine, then limit it to a certain time during the day. Trying to figure out I think caffeine's got a half-life of about 8 hours. So 8 hours, that means 8 hours after the last caffeine that we have, your body will start to withdraw, which means if you have a coffee 4 o'clock in the afternoon, then your body starts to going to wean itself off after midnight. And after midnight, it's going to be wanting more and more caffeine. If you've got and that's personal. So it might be slightly different for different people. But knowing who you are and figuring out that I can't have a drink of coffee after 4, I can't have a drink of coffee after 2, I can't have one after midday, maybe. So all my caffeine has to be in the morning, otherwise it will ruin my sleep. And that's about getting to know yourself and making sure that you're looking after yourself. That's the physical side. Emotional side, set aside once a week for social activities. It's great to socialize with people from work. If you've got a really good staff that you get on really, really well with, that's great. And socializing with them can be great, especially when we know that nobody understands the work that we do, and apart from the staff that we're working with, and it's easy to upload to them because they understand where we are, what we're doing, and the stressful work that we're doing. But if staff going out in a social thing, whether it's a lunch, a dinner, Friday evening, Saturday evening, if that staff can't set work aside, it's not healthy. If staff can go out and be normal, just like being not staff together, that's fantastic. But if it just ends up being like a work beach fest or something like that, when it's Friday evening, you're meant to be socializing, great, or Saturday afternoon, a barbecue, you're meant to be downloading and forgetting about work, and in the end, it just ends up arguing, or not even arguing, but discussing all the problems that work's got in the middle of a Saturday afternoon. That's so not good for us. So maybe whether it's still breathing techniques, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's meditation, whatever it is, to just get us out of, on the one hand, with meditation, getting us out of who we are, but then on the other hand, mindfulness bringing us right into where we are. Whatever we can do is going to extend our longevity. Just trying to jump in with what Justin's saying, it can also be the opposite for introverts. Some alone time, exactly, yeah. And you've got to figure out what it is you need. The problem with us introverts or those extroverts is figuring out what we need. With introverts, they're going to go, I'm better alone, I'm better alone, I'm better alone. Oh no, I'm alone. There's nobody around me. I need people. And then with extroverts, they're like, I need to be with people. I need to be with people. I need to be with people. I'm exhausted. People are driving me mental. So we have to figure out what is best for us and where that line is. And it's not often the amount of people, but the right people. So quality time with the right people is better than loads of time with certain people. Yeah. I'm sure you know which people those are. Um, Not necessarily toxic people. It's just getting the right people to like build us up and energize us. And this is because we're looking at this because the shelf life of around 2 years, 3 years for community service workers, um, we need to do some, we as in anybody working in the sector, we need to do something about that. It's a industry cliche, and that's for every service and every agency to try and take up the like issue with it that people a couple of years in the industry are going to get burned out, and that's fact. And a change is as good as a rest sometimes. A change in the organization could work where you've been doing a job, you've been doing a role for a couple of years, and you're starting to get either bored or you're starting to feel like far out, I'm not going anywhere with this thing, whatever it is I'm doing. I could see myself being here in 10, 20 years and never actually moving forward. Maybe you just move to a different department and suddenly you think, yeah, no, I'm feeling empowered again now. I'm glad I've done that move. So you don't necessarily leave the workplace because there wasn't anything necessarily bad about the service you were in, but moving the role and leaving that to somebody else who might be able to bring some a bit more enthusiasm to it rather than staying in the role when we've got no enthusiasm for it is not just detrimental to the job, but it's going to bring us down. So when we're trying to monitor and we're trying to look after ourselves, timesheets, not just if we're paid by the hour and our employer is requesting timesheets so that we're documenting every hour and we're keeping a copy just to make sure we don't get short paid, but actually to record the hours that we are definitely working to make sure that we are not overly putting hours in or we're not thinking too much about work when we shouldn't be. So documenting what we're actually doing when we're meant to be having downtime. These two can work in together. So keeping a journal of how our emotions are going or how our workload is affecting us, And reading over a journal in hindsight is quite often helpful to look at the path that we've gone on over the past week or over the past month. To-do list of things that you want to complete in your free time is really, really helpful. It can be really, really helpful to some people, and ultra helpful to other people. With some people, it's just a tick list of things that they might get done in their own downtime and thinking, yeah, that's good. But with every tick of things that we get done, task or chore or just a little thing that I needed to do in my time, then it gives like the brain a dopamine hit, and we think, yes, I've got that done. I've got that done as well. And moving through, whether the chores or just tasks that needed doing, moving through a list like that gives a massive sense of achievement. And at the end of the free time, you can think, yeah, I might have only have had half an hour, or I might have had 3 hours, but that time was really successful. And I'm proud of what I did in that time. And it doesn't have to be, our downtime or free time doesn't have to be filled with chores for us to get something out of it. John Lennon said John Lennon said, time wasted is never really wasted. Don't know whether it's true, but he might not have said it neither, but he is credited as saying that. The system to score your emotional and physical well-being over time. So trying to do that, if you're going to do that, making sure that it's at the same time or focus every time that you do it. So it might be, no matter where I am, no matter what I've done over the past 10, 20 years, 3 or 4 o'clock has always been when my body dips. And if I'm at work, then I'll fall asleep somewhere. If I'm at home, then I'll want to just sit down and fall asleep. So trying to record how we're feeling physically, emotionally at a certain time every day, we can track how our emotions are dipping or peaking. And it's one way to look after ourselves. When we go to the GP and he gives us a health check, or ask us how we're feeling, we're going to want to track what our blood pressure is, a blood test, quite often first thing in the morning, so that they look at the blood sugar overnight and then cholesterol. So everything is done at a specific time so that it can be reanalyzed every single time. So with emotional health checks, they are going to want to be measured at an equivalent time. Don't do Monday morning one week and then Friday afternoon a separate week. That's a very different me on a Monday morning compared to a Friday afternoon, or Saturday evening compared to Sunday morning, is two very, very different types of person because of what I'm going to be getting up to on the Sunday or what I've been up to on the Saturday. And it'll make me feel completely different. And as I've said, leave work at work. It's hard. It's almost impossible sometimes, but leave work at work. It's impossible when you work from home. It's impossible when you are living very close to work. It's impossible if it's short. There's like a short commute, and a long commute in traffic is so painful at times, but it can help the body adjust from work to home life, and might help you leave work at work. So we have to figure out strategies to do that for us and whatever the work situation is. So identifying work-life priorities. There's some things at home some things in our home life are far more important than things that we're doing at work. But then there's some things that work that are going to be far more important than some of the things that we're doing at home. And we have to mesh them together and figure out how they blend together for us. So sports, children, obviously, romantic relationships, personal projects, traveling. We've got to recognize we've got to prioritize these, because if we don't regularly prioritize them, sometimes every week, maybe every month or every couple of weeks, if we don't remember they are priorities, work is going to crowd in. Especially with the demands from work, it's very rare that like work takes a back seat because, well, doesn't, as far as I've seen, doesn't for men. Work seems to railroad these, but the stress and anxiety with a lot of women of all of these happening, and then the pull of trying to do all of these with work pressures as well. It seems as if men can push these aside so that work can fill the space, but women hold on to these, or there's a bigger pull for these to be held onto, and work and these can cause an immense amount of anxiety, unfortunately. So we've got to figure out these, recognize the priorities, and then bring in a stress management technique, whatever that is. However we manage stress, we've got to recognize it first, obviously. And it's not that we're constantly running from stress, because that would be trying to hide from something that's normal, something that's part of daily life. So we're not trying to run from stress, we're trying to manage it. Managing it can look like loads of different things. And psychologists will tell us if we never have any stress at all, nothing will get done. If there's no demand put on us, if there's no expectation, if there's no tiny amount of stress put onto us, then we wouldn't achieve our best. But when that stress goes beyond what we feel we can cope with, then that's not a very healthy situation. We're walking into a situation where we're not, we don't feel strong enough to carry the stress that's put onto us. But whether that's work, relationship, hobbies, or whatever we're looking at, there's got to be a stress management technique put in place, which means if we're already working to a certain healthy lifestyle, so we've got our work at work, and we've got our other domains of life, our social life, all allocated. We've got our emotional health fixed. Then work stress can get bigger and bigger and bigger. But if we can still leave work at work and look after our social life and look after our mental health, then work stress can get really big. But we can still manage it because of the resilience that we've got. And then when we're talking to clients, and trying to talk to them about their strengths with the strength-based approach, that type of thing, and talk to them about resilience. The studies that have been done on resilience have all been done by youth workers in the youth work sector, and how young people have managed to cope with incredible amount of stress and still carry on, and deal with trauma and still move on to the next stage in their life because of a certain way that resilient young people have, I was going to say built, but when they looked at the resilience, the teaching young people to be resilient, and then when young people are studying that, they're finding out that resilience is having good sleep health, good diet, good social health, good exercise regime, being all healthy in every area, so that in the end, our social, mental, emotional, physical, our whole well-being makes us more resilient. If something starts to slip, if we get chronically ill, chronically physically ill, our resilience to any workload stress or relationship stress will go down. If our mental health suffers and we start to dip, then our capacity and resilience to workload stress or personal stress is going to go down, and we won't be able to handle what we could handle previously. Try and keep every domain of our life healthy, impacts on everything else, and keeps us stronger. So we've got to address personal triggers. Addressing personal triggers means that there are certain things that stress me that aren't going to stress you, and there's certain things that stress you that might not stress me, or just won't affect me. So we've got to figure out what the key focus is for ourselves. The trigger is when we look at like an American movie with any weapons or bombs or anything that can cause harm. The trigger is just the tiniest piece of the massive explosion of whatever the weapon is. So a trigger on a bomb is a very, very tiny button. A trigger on a gun is a small thing compared to the whole mechanism that it is. The explosion that can happen from either of them is huge, but the trigger is so, so small. And mental health is exactly the same. The intensity of the stress or the intensity of the anxiety or the intensity of the breakdown that can happen compared to the small trigger that it is. It's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. We're going on, we're fine, we're fine, we're fine, we're fine. Small, tiny thing happens and we're not fine anymore. So we've got to figure out what the personal triggers are, which means many times at first we don't do this. At first response, we're not going to address the root cause. We're going to go symptom based. That's a great political response. So when there's a massive problem, we don't the root cause, the main issue isn't addressed. It's a symptom. You throw money at a symptom, and you throw money at trying to deal with a symptom that is seen to be the big problem, but then never actually get into the root cause. That's just firefighting. Because if you don't get to the root cause, then a few weeks later, you've thrown money at one symptom. A few weeks later, you've dealt with it, and then you're going to deal with another symptom. And then you're going to deal with another symptom. You're going to deal with another symptom. So when we get to the root cause of something, then that is going to deal with a lot of symptoms a lot better. It could be the way we deal with stress. It could be the fact that we're getting bullied in the workplace. It could be the fact that we have taken on too much at work. It could be the fact that we're trying to do too much at home, or we're in a difficult relationship. So whichever of them is the root cause, we have to sit down and think about it. Sometimes it's literally just talking with a friend to map things out. Sometimes it's talking with a counselor or a psychologist. It depends on how self-reflective we are, we can put in a journal instead of a counselor, psychologist, or friend, and writing down the stress and the issues that we're having, writing them all out, reading them back the next week and thinking, oh yeah, actually, I think I'm probably taking on too much. And actually figuring that out, obviously, is the first step. Scaling everything back is a massive second step that obviously we can run for weeks or months and keep going and thinking, yeah, I need to pull things back. I'm doing too much. That can go on for months. And we've got to make an actionable plan, as we would tell clients, that we can make an action and make sure that we are actively moving on the stages of change for ourselves and doing an action rather than just thinking about it for a long time. So make changes to your lifestyle, get the help that we need, and then set strategies for dealing with triggers and stresses. And then on the other side, like if we've never gone through this, and if we don't know how to do this with any clients that we need to work with, I don't know how I would do that with a client if I've never had to deal with stress, figure out how to be resilient, and deal with mess in my life, and not advise, but try and help somebody figure out strategies for dealing with their own problems. And it's not that you can't help somebody out if you haven't been in their mess, if you haven't had the same mess as them. It's not. I don't think it's anything to do with that. I think it's more to do with when we've dealt with our own stress, we can use that as a strength, and that is one of the strengths that we can see in people. That not just being resilient. Oh, you're so strong because you've dealt with all this. No, it's more like, well, this is how you've dealt with that massive trauma, or this is how you've dealt with that massive stress in your life. Well, the way you've done that, you can reproduce that and you can carry on to do other bigger things with that because of the way you work. So, as I mentioned, discrimination or bullying is very, very close, but these do happen in too many workplaces. Talk to your supervisor. It could be your supervisor that's doing the discrimination or bullying, obviously. Identify appeal strategies if possible. So if it's not a supervisor we can talk to, it could be somebody in HR, P&C, people and culture, or human relations. Might need to go to them. It might be that we have to go higher in the organization. So obviously there is a protocol. Obviously we'd speak to this person first. If that's not possible, then we sidestep and go to admin. If obviously in some organizations, the HR department is in the pocket of the bullies, so that they've been chosen because they're not going to say anything, and that's just the way some businesses work, then we're going to have to look outside for any support. Lodge with Fair Work if you're unsuccessful with HR, but there is a protocol, there is an answer. It's not easy, but it is doable. And then contact Australian Human Rights Commission. Could be a big step that we need to do. Just a bit of research to do now as a bit of a relief. With stress management, we can do this for 10 minutes. As much stress management, alternative therapies, when I say alternative therapies, like absolutely anything. There's so many different things that we wouldn't think do help stress. All sorts of different advice, but there could be wacky ideas to some people, but a lot of people might swear by them. And I don't want to give you any ideas because I want you to research it. But what can deal with stress? So yeah, I'll give you a question. I'll write it down. Probably easier. Alternative health options to assist with stress. So as much as you can. details as well. And is it web-based? Is it a service? Is it where do you go to access it or learn it? Whatever you get in, you can put them in the chat, or you could scribble them on there if you want on the screen, um, or you can shout them out in the video. All right, I'm just going to read some of these out. When I say alternative, like I guess when we think alternative, I don't know what I don't know what the word alternative is meant to mean, because we know these things do work, but I guess are we saying alternative because we think like, oh, they probably shouldn't work? They don't seem as if they would work, but they do work. Um, because like if I've got a headache and I take a paracetamol, then it's going to work because it's a tablet and it's been proven to work scientifically. But if I know that I'm stressed and I go for a walk in the bush, then I know that's going to relieve it. But some people are going to say that's an alternative therapy, but it works. It's like it definitely works. So I'm trying to understand what alternative therapy means. And not standard medicine, I guess, not standard Western medicine. Um, so homeopathy, yeah, definitely. ASMR, um, to help sleep. I'm not quite sure what that is. Something to do with calming, scratching, or something, I think. Yoga, yeah, naturopathy, acupressure and acupuncture, aromatherapy, acupuncture, Reiki, massage, Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, mindfulness. Yeah. Art therapy, music therapy, float tanks, Tibetan bowl sound. I haven't done it, but I've heard it on movies, and that sounds amazing. Hypnotherapy, play and drama therapies, take a walk or exercise. Yeah. Pranic healing. Don't know that one, Paul. Complementary is probably a better term. Yeah, I think you're probably right, Sarah. Um, I think complementary is a better term because it'll complement the science. But if you're confessing and admitting that it's an alternative therapy, you're almost putting something that works into a category of, it's a bit weird. Um, Other system of medicine, true, yeah. The last one I heard was literally yesterday or so, the day before, that sauna and ice cold plunge pool, the health benefits of that is so powerful. And I can I can fully believe that an ice cold plunge pool and sauna is scientifically proven. I don't know whether I have the courage to do it. Even a even a cold shower, like a cold shower, is supposed to do wonders for our nervous system. That it like resets us in the morning, and it can really set us up powerfully for the day. Just a normal cold shower rather than a lukewarm one for more than 5 minutes. Um, I just really can't bring myself to do this. Yeah, if you can stay in them, that's right. Far out. A master's in pranic healing. Come on then, Paul. What is it? I'll have to Google it later then. All right. So some powerful ways to um, relieve stress, and it's about when our nervous system is in fight or flight. There's the two sides of our nervous system. There's the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, um, trying to keep us alive in stress, danger, threat. And then we've got the other side, which is rest, digest, um, calm, uh, immunization in the body, and things growing, cell regeneration, all of the all of the regrowth in our nervous system, but they don't work at the same time. When one's working strongly, the other one won't work. So we struggle to be stressed if we are in a strong state of rest, digest, calm, but then we struggle to be calm if we're in a strong state of stress, fight, flight mode. And if one's at work, the other one can't be. So we've got to figure out ourselves. And you just listed a lot of ways of how to get the sympathetic nervous system working strongly. Um, all of these therapies, walking in the bush, trying to calm ourselves down, the drama play, trying to get us out of the parasympathetic and into the sympathetic so that we can calm ourselves. Yes, Justin.
I think you just sort of answered it. It was like it's like there's some what is it, parasympathetic nervous system. Isn't there a gland as well, or is that wrong? Like a perineal gland or something that
That sets off the
the fight or flight,
um,
or the opposite.
yeah.
I
So
was just
it's that's our I think they call it the reptilian brain, the basic brain that we've got in common to mammals, reptiles. We've all got the fight or flight, and it can kick in so easily. It's just a natural response. It's a basic response. Um, not sure whether it's the pituitary gland.
that's the word I was thinking
Might
of.
not be,
Yeah,
might not. I don't know.
yeah, okay.
But it's such a normal response that it's hard to combat something that's a normal response. It's like trying to hold your breath underwater because you're trying to stop being stressed when you know that's the normal instinct action. Um, but it like we can do it. Humans can do it. Humans can hold their breath for longer than my concentration span. For a lot of them underwater. So, and that's saying something. Um, so I'll just skip this. Actually, before we move on, because there's been a break, I might as well chuck all this up. Just um, just the usual stuff. Um, so we're looking at HLTWHS006, manage personal stresses in the work environment. This unit describes the skills and knowledge required to maintain health and well-being by preventing and managing personal stress. This unit applies to work in a range of health and community services settings, in particular work roles that operate in high-stress situations and circumstances. So obviously, some units that we're doing, it doesn't matter what you're doing, what diploma you're doing, there'll be core modules about work health and safety, and we have to study that because the government says it. This is not one of those. This is one of the community sector ones that should be core module. Like it's not just community services jobs that are stressful. Loads of jobs are stressful, whether you're in construction, hospitality. Um, we should do this in other modules, but community services have decided that this is important, so we're putting it in here. With the performance evidence, developed, implemented, and reviewed one personal stress management plan. That's a personal stress management plan. So to pass the module, you have to look at your own stress and figure out how you deal with it, whether it works. It might not work. Like when I get stressed, I shout and scream and I run from the stress. Okay, that's my personal stress management plan. It doesn't work, but I've reviewed my stress management plan. So identify sources, triggers, and responses to the stress. Use strategies from personal stress management plan to manage two stressful situations in the workplace involving colleagues and or clients. So it's about managing our own self so that we know how to recommend what works, what doesn't work, and we can pass on what works for me, what doesn't work for me, what works for other people, alternative therapies that I've never tried, but I have heard that work really, really well, whatever they are. Again, Calendly, I've chucked that contact in as well if you need it. You're allowed like 2.5 hours in a month or an hour a month with a staff member, whether that's me or somebody that can help you. with that one, that'll get you to me on a Monday. Just see what's free. If you need anything, if you want them to talk about a role play or an assessment or anything like that. Or there's LSO, obviously. With Discord, obviously, mentioning that again, if you haven't heard it. Don't know who this recording is going out to, so I guess you need your own account, registered your own email address. Then you need to accept the invite next to the HAID login, the Accelerate login. Very close together. So you accept the invite, it takes you to the terms and conditions, the rules of engagement. You accept, saying you agree with one of these, and then obviously no profanity, respecting people, no abusive language or personalities, looking after each other, and then you get into the other channels so that you can connect with other people and potentially look at a logistically setting up a role play, or just assessment advice. Doesn't have to be about a role play. There's a video here about role plays that Cheyenne, one of the trainers, has done. It's really, really good. I've got that ready so we can look at that. Oh, we can look at that now, actually. Perfect time before break. And this, as I mentioned, this is the learning guide for this module. It's really, really important, but there's not a lot really to cover. It's pretty straightforward. You've got to look at a stress management plan for yourself and then know what works and what doesn't work. That's pretty much it. I can't remember what the assessments are. We might have looked at them last week, but I don't know whether there's a role play or not. I can't remember that far back. This video is about role plays, the do's and don'ts of role plays. It's things that have gone wrong recently, and it's for different role play people. People have been doing role plays, and it's questions that LSO get asked quite a lot. So I just wanted to watch this because he's done a really good job, and it's worth watching. So I figured out how to do this. So this is I'm a genius now in my own head because I can play sound.
Hello everyone, my name is Cheyenne. Today we'll go through the key do's and don'ts for role plays. These guidelines will help you ensure that your submissions meet industry expectation and also demonstrate your skills more effectively. Role plays are a very important part of assessments, so following these best practices will support your success. Now let's go over the do's for role plays. Following these best practices will help you present a more professional and effective role play submission. First of all, prepare in advance. Always read the instructions carefully so you don't misunderstand and you understand the expectations of the role play. Read the instructions carefully. So make sure you follow all task requirements to demonstrate the necessary skills. Have a quiet space. A distraction-free environment will help ensure clear communication and a professional setting. Allow others to read from scripts. Again, allow others to read off scripts. Supporting participants can use scripts to maintain accuracy and consistency. So your family and friends and other learners who are helping you in the role play can read off scripts, but not the person who's been assessed. Demonstrate micro skills. So You've got to use active listening, paraphrasing, and summarizing to enhance communication. It's important that you stick to time limits, so keep within the required time frame to stay focused on key aspects of the role play. Also engage in two-way communication, so encourage open dialogue by asking open-ended questions and active listening. Finally, ensure good audio and video quality. Check your lighting, microphone, and camera clarity to avoid technical issues. By following these do's, you will ensure your roleplay meets industry standards and effectively demonstrate your skills. Now let's go over the don'ts. These are common mistakes that can negatively impact your roleplay performance. First of all, don't have one person playing multiple roles. Each role should have a separate person to ensure a realistic interaction. Don't go off topic, so stick to the scenario and focus on the objectives of the roleplay. Next, don't interrupt or talk over others. Allow natural conversation flow and ensure all participants have a chance to speak. Now, the next one is important. It's about virtual backgrounds. You can use virtual backgrounds, but just double check when you do some testing before you submit it, that the virtual background does not interfere with the visibility and it does not make it hard to assess body language and engagement for the trainers. There's been occasions where people have used virtual backgrounds and they have caused issues with the visibility of the person being assessed, and we had to ask them to redo the assessment again. So please just make sure you're testing your virtual background first, make sure it does not affect the visibility. And if it does, try another one. If you can't find one that doesn't affect visibility, then simply do not use one at all. Next, don't rush through the role play. So please take your time to engage meaningfully and demonstrate your skills effectively. This one's important. Don't read word for word from a script for the main role. Again, don't read word for word from a script for the main role. Again, the supporting role, your friends and families who help you to play the participants in the role play can read off scripts, but you, the learner who is being assessed, cannot read off scripts. You can have notes to help you and prompt you, but that is it. This is because we want you to respond naturally and show your ability to think on your feet, and also to display micro skills. You can't do this if you're reading off a script. The next one is don't ignore ethical or legal considerations. We want you to maintain confidentiality, professionalism, and appropriate boundaries. Don't show disengagement, so avoid monotone speech, lack of eye contact, or appearing uninterested. By avoiding these don'ts, you will ensure more effective role play, that you're engaged, and also ensuring a professional role play submission. Okay, final tips for role plays. So to wrap it up, on your screen are some final tips to ensure successful role play submissions. Again, follow the instructions carefully. Make sure you understand the role play requirements and expectations. Don't change the instructions to fit. Make sure you follow each instruction. Create a professional environment for recording. So choose a quiet, well-lit space to ensure clarity in your video. Next, stay in character and demonstrate your skills. You have to engage naturally and apply relevant micro skills. Also, keep engagement high and respond naturally. Avoid sounding robotic or disengaged, and also interact meaningfully. And this will help if you do not read off scripts. Use these guidelines to improve your submissions. So please follow the best practices, because this will ensure that you, and this will enhance the quality of your role plays. If you need further clarification, please contact LSO for support. Thank you for your time and best of luck with your role plays.
So Chen he mentioned that we want you to think on your feet, and we want you to like to have a simulated background. We want you to be working about covering yourself, and can't remember what he said, but it's not just about us. It's about also the government saying, like here, skills must have been demonstrated in the workplace. Well, so this is the National Training Register. This is the government telling us that when we assess you guys, it must have been demonstrated in the workplace. Well, we don't have a work placement for AOD. So we use a simulated environment that reflects workplace conditions. Where simulation is used, it must reflect real working conditions by modeling industry operating conditions and contingencies. So what they're saying there is the massive difference between being on screen on a Zoom like session tonight and then putting yourself into a role play situation. So you would this is diploma, and people are different in diploma, but in other courses or in not necessarily in AOD, like people have got their laptop on their bed and they're laid down on their bed, and you can see the back of their bedroom, or they've got the big headboard around them, or they're wearing a singlet. They've been at work all day, so they've barely got changed. They've got the PJs on, great looking PJs, but they're just sat in class and they're just relaxing. All of that is obviously not a simulated workplace environment. So there's two ways to get a workplace environment. Obviously, like a lot of workplace conditions are expecting women to cover their shoulders. So to do a role play with a singlet on, or it's hot outside when you're doing the role play, so you're just dressing appropriately for that. But that's not workplace dress. You've got to be dressed for the role play. So you might put a jacket on. You might even put a shirt and tie on if you're depending on the role playing situation. You would set your back behind you up to look like a workplace. So it might have a table, a couple of chairs on the table. There might be a couple of glasses of water, a lot of papers spread out, like documents that look like it could be a case study room rather than the kitchen table. Unless the role play is placed in a kitchen, one or two of them might be in a kitchen environment, but it's very rare. But if you can't get that, then you can get a role play background, which just if people haven't seen them, might look something like that. And then that's a simulated workplace environment still. But with these backgrounds, even the yellow one that I use, if you go too far away from it, then it's fine for me. If you go too far away from it, then it blocks you out. So you could be talking away, but you don't even realize that you've disappeared from the camera. Go on, Ian, jump in. What were you going to say?
I just had a question, that was all.
Yeah.
And that was to the multiple, using one person for multiple roles. Is that multiple roles in one role play, or is it like I just have one friend and they're doing a lot of them? Which is the case.
Yeah. One person with multiple roles in one role play.
Okay.
So you can. That's fine. I'm stuck with one friend, and he's the only person that I've got to do the role plays. No, it's some people inventively, a bit of ingenuity, have got their one friend, and they've got in one role play, they would have been David, the client, then they're going to be David's caseworker, then they're going to be David's dad, and then they're going to be David's sister, while our Hader student is the staff member. But we can't do that. Also, I don't think he mentioned everybody in a situation like that. We have to have everybody on screen at the same time. That's don't know why that's a simulated environment, but it is. So if it's a staff member and a client both on the screen at the same time, which normally would work, but when we've got maybe a caseworker as well, and then we've got a family member, and there's 4 or 5 people in the role play, we need them all on the screen at the same time. And just finally, before break, with any role play, it would start off with hi, my name's I get almost clinical of like a reading through of the introduction to the role play. So my name is Dwayne Wright. I'm a Hader student. This is my ID. Or you recite your Hader student ID. Just say that straight through. I'm Dwayne Wright. This is my ID. Hader student. Tonight I'm doing the role play for HLTWHS006, task 3 of 3. David has been diagnosed with depression. He is working with me. He's been working with me for a few weeks, and tonight I'm just going to be working through some targets with him for some future goals. And then we'd go straight into it. And if I was holding up my ID with a fake background, then we have to make sure that we can see it, because if I hold it in the wrong position, then it goes out of shot. And it's illegal. The role play is a legal document. So it's evidence that you are passing the course. And if there's no ID for you represented there, then we can't prove it's yours. Even though your face is on it, you have to prove that it's you by like showing your ID or saying your Hader ID. I think that's it. So we can jump into looking at some assessments after break. Yeah. So have a good 10 minutes and read. And then we're looking at the stresses in the workplace, the personal stress management plans. I thought so, yeah. Ideally, maybe we could look at a stress management plan later on if there's time. But you've got the questions, you've got the stress management plan, and then you've got an evaluation of your stress management plan and how you deal with stress. So that's them 3 there. What I wanted to do, because there isn't a role play, I was wanting to look at the role play from the last module, which is this one. To work effectively in trauma-informed care. So if you haven't done this yet, then this will be a good blend into it. If you have completed it and uploaded it, then it's just more role play experience. So I was going to say, can you get access to it? But it really doesn't matter. All we need is the task itself. So I'll show you the three scenarios. So working with Belinda using principles of trauma-informed care. that was the 7 points on when you Google them, they come up anyway. Today you're working with Belinda using principles of trauma-informed care. You're concerned that Belinda may suicide. Ultimately, you would like to complete a suicide safety plan with Belinda. However, you will need to establish trust and safety first. At the end of the session, request feedback from Belinda and respond appropriately. And that's the other thing about role plays. This role plays that deal with suicide ideation. I can remember we talked about it. This role play is about suicide ideation, so it's hard to skirt around it. But when there's a role play that you've got a list of things to deal with and suicide crops up a little bit, if it crops up a little bit as half of a conversation, you have to address it. You have to mention it to the person and try and get onto the subject. It's good that the way this neatly says you need to mention suicide, but you need to build up trust and safety first. That's not going to help if you just jump in with, "Hi, Belinda, I hear you talking about suicide. What's the problem?" No, that's not really going to help. So with anything, you need to establish trust and safety first, and then move towards this intense conversation about suicide. That's great when this is a whole role play just about that. But when you've got a list of things about talking about the AOD use, you've got to mention the kids, you've got to talk about the privacy confidentiality, and then the suicide mentioned as well, then the temptation for some people is that, okay, well, I know I've got to talk about I've got to talk about privacy confidentiality, obviously. I'm going to mention the kids. Well, she's still here talking. She's come to me today. She's talking to me about her mental health. So she can't be suicidal. So I'm not going to mention that. That's like, if it says anywhere in the scenario about a specific issue, it's got to be mentioned. That's why it's there, to make sure that you mention it. So we've got Belinda, yeah, and then we've got Rita. I think it's the same instructions for each one, isn't it? Yes. So it doesn't matter which scenario you use, you're still getting the same instructions to do. So Farida is, today you aim to establish safety and trust with Farida and then collaborate with her to discuss options for referrals to other services. First Access is unable to provide emergency accommodation at this time, but you are able to refer Farida to legal accommodation and social services that you may find helpful. There's no massive scenario there. If you needed a massive scenario, then you'd go to role play instructions. But for a short attempt at a role play, you don't need anything more than that tonight. Farida needs to work in trauma-informed care strategies, and she's looking at housing, emergency accommodation. Maybe she's got kids, maybe she hasn't. Maybe she's got AOD issues, maybe she hasn't. Maybe she's got mental health issues, maybe she hasn't. You decide. And then just look at different scenario bits on the task. And lastly, Isaac, 19, massive scenario. Maybe don't do that one. So have a choose of who we've got. We've got 7 people. So that's 3 groups. Yeah. If you screenshot them both, just with your camera or with your phone or something, just take a screenshot of them both. And then you can figure out in breakout rooms which one you're going to look at. So we'd be looking at doing a role play of 5 to 10 minutes for each person. So both people get a chance. You don't need to put much preparation into it. Like, you don't need to plan out a script much. You don't need to look at a backstory or a case study, because there's very limited information there. Just go straight to the role play as much as you can, unless it really, really freaks you out and you need some sort of script or some sort of plan to work on. Just jump straight in and try and get 5 to 10 minutes each, which means if there's 2 people in the group, then you're going to be looking at nearly 20 minutes by the time 2 people have done. And if you're a group of 3, then obviously it's going to be nearly 15 minutes. So decide either Belinda or Farida, and then figure it out when you get into the group. So I'll just do some automatic grouping.
Can you go back to the first one? I missed it.
Oh, well, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So, like I said, I don't mean to be harsh, but there's nobody like really new in their first few weeks here. It might be a bit freaky, but just don't start planning. Like, sometimes with new people, still in the first few weeks, and you get them to look at a role play, and after 20 minutes, they come back and say, "Oh, we were just looking at like planning out what we might say. We didn't really act anything out." Just jump in. Just get something acted, prepared. Go for it. So 3 rooms. Did somebody just disappear? That's funny. That's great when that happens. All right, so we've got Justin and Sarah, we've got Napur and Rasha, and we've got Ian and Tamara. So it's 7:30 now. So we'll go to at least 1:45. And if it's not 7:30 with you, then we'll do 15 minutes at least. If you need a bit longer, I'll jump in and out and figure out how much longer you need. Figure out what is going to work as you're doing it, as you're both doing the role play. Figure out what works and what isn't working, so that afterwards you know, next time I need either more of a script, or I need just a couple of pointers. I need a prompt to remember what the principles of trauma-informed care are, or I needed to know the method or the formula for motivational interviewing. Whatever it is, figure out what you need from doing the role play, and then in hindsight think, all right, or maybe you needed another 2 or 3 minutes and it would have been perfect. So I'll open the breakout rooms. Does anybody need anything before I open it? And then, no, I'll jump in and out and see if there's anything. And I'm muted and my camera's off. So, what happened? Anybody just jump in and tell me what you needed, what would have been better? Yeah, if you were going to repeat something straight away, what would you need immediately? We'll go Justin first, yeah?
That's all right. Let Sarah go. I'll go after Sarah.
All right, Sarah?
I was just going to say, Justin and I, we did quite a at the end, but we were talking with, we did Belinda, and it was just really interesting. We were discussing ways to make Belinda feel comfortable, because obviously she's a 19-year-old girl who's been involuntary putting her dad, who's a preacher, etc., and how to address those, and you know, how do you, if you know that somebody is told, she's told her friend but she hasn't told you.
Sorry, Sarah, your mic got a bit crackly there. I missed the important bit. So, Justin, can you comment? Can you help out there? Sorry, I don't know whether anybody else got that crackly bit
I'm the
as
same.
well.
I couldn't hear Sarah. I won't speak for her, but I think it was you know, and I brought this up as well. Like for something like for someone that's not willing, well, not that's the wrong word. For someone that you're trying to establish trust with, like it says in the script that we have been their support worker. It's like it's I suppose you can't go too deep into it. Like you said, you've just got to start the conversation off, because building trust in the space of an hour, it can be near impossible. Like you're not trying to build trust to the point to where, you know, they believe in you as a person, or I think it's just that it's basic enough trust to where you can probe them. Like they might not give you the answer. They might not give you what you need. And I suppose you've got to accept that, but you just start, like I always, like for me, like I volunteer at a rehab. I honestly just be myself. I'm not always everyone's cup of tea. And like Sarah said, you've got to read the room first. You know, like I may present to a female, like being a lived experienced person that's been a drug dealer and in jail. Like I might come across to a female that's been in it, you know, I might look like their ex, and I'm not going to get anywhere with this person, and I've just got to accept that, and I'm not going to be able to build that trust, you know. I can share, I do sometimes, like, because I've been through a lot of sexual abuse myself, so sometimes I share a very small part of my story to build that trust, without going into detail, just so they can maybe empathize with you to open up. Also, you've got to try and sneak in, and especially with suicide and self-harm, because this is where you're tethering on losing them, is you've got to put in your mandatory reports. So you've got to try and get them to answer the questions. And as Sarah said at the start, like they might not tell you because they don't want to go back to the institution they're in. They don't want repercussions. They don't want. But you've got to tell them, like, hey, look, this is between you and me. But if I feel like there's any going to be self-harm or you're going to hurt someone else, like I have to report that, you know, like and a lot of people, that's where you lose them, you know, and there's not much you can do about it, but that's like our job. You can't not say it because you're like, oh, I'm worried that they're not going to tell me. But that's you sort of have to sneak that in there as well, you know, and as I said to Sarah, with me, I also, to build trust, I just talk about small talk. Do you like Pokemon? Do you like painting? Like, how's your day been? Have you got any friends back at the home that you're staying with? What's your friend's name? You know, like, what do you guys get up to? Show some sort of interest in them, and then it can sort of lead on to the deeper conversations, you know? I guess we've got to realize as support workers though, like you can only try, like you can't force an answer out of someone. You can't force them to do the questionnaires. Like to be honest, they're either going to do it or they're not, you know, like we could try and invoke that trust and safe space for them. But yeah, it's a bit hidden, especially with it, like a younger girl that maybe has been through a lot and doesn't like talking, can be really difficult, you know?
Like there's two things with the role plays. You got to pretend it's all given. don't overcomplicate it. Don't pretend that that they have any doubt that they trust you. Ask the right questions, say the right things, assume that trust and rapport is going to be built very, very quickly. And assume in the role play it's the best possible solution. Like, this does not happen in real life. Like, just assume that in the role play it's just step by step by step. Okay, we've just started the session. We've talked a little bit. We've asked the right questions. I've said a few open questions. You've answered in the right way. Okay, we've assumed rapport, a bit of trust. Now let's gently talk about suicide ideation or about child abuse, whatever the thing is talking about. But that doesn't, it doesn't work like that in real life. It takes a lot longer to, and I'm talking to everybody that knows that, obviously. And then in real life, you will, to compensate with that, just in case I'm telling people that don't know, it takes so long to build a kind of rapport like that for somebody sometimes. Which means that week after week after week, I used to be in a rehab where everybody in the residential rehab, we had an on-site psychologist, and they had to, part of the program of being in rehab was speaking to the psychologist at least once a month. It's part of the program. And the psychologist would come and say to us, look, he's refusing. He won't, he's running off when his appointment comes up, so he's refusing to come in. Do we kick him out for that? And we never kicked anybody out for refusing to see a psychologist. But just getting this person into the room to say hi and have a coffee with the psychologist and not anything else was a big win sometimes. Which means that building rapport can take months. And then other times he would come to us and say, look, I just need to talk to you about so-and-so. He's not wanting to talk to me about his suicide ideation. He's confessed to child abuse when he was younger, and he's not wanting to talk to me about that. I've seen him 4 or 5 times in the past 5 months, and he's still not wanting to open up. There's not a lot we can do with that, and we just keep going over surface issues. And that's like genuinely from the psychologist, that he said, sometimes just we can't get any deeper. And when we go in with best efforts, the best intentions of trying to build the rapport that's necessary, sometimes even the best efforts don't work. The skills that in the role plays, the skills that it's trying to give you, when they are put into practice, they can be the things that work, like motivational interviewing, empathy, active listening, reflective questions. They all build an atmosphere where it can work, where it can be almost be perfect. But if the other person's not ready, then, like you say, how do you do it? You can't at times. Sometimes it just doesn't work. I think we don't mention much about, a lot of the role players don't talk much about, it's not mirroring. So when you mirror somebody, you're mirroring their emotions or sometimes their words. But perceived mirroring is the only way I could describe it. So when somebody tells you something, if we assume that they're going to be ashamed of that, we might feel ashamed. We might feel ashamed for them. Or if somebody tells us something that traumatic they've been through, we might perceive that they're going to be in shock or trauma because of that. So we take that on first, and we throw them off when they're just talking about the abuse that they've had that morning. And it's just standard practice for them. But when we get shocked or we feel ashamed because of them, it shuts them down straight away. So it's almost getting to the point where we can feel empathy on the one hand with somebody that's struggling with something, but then we can mirror them and we can say, okay, yeah, you've had a massive argument with your partner this morning and they've given you a messed up face. That's horrible. So what are we doing now? What's the next step with what we're doing? Rather than jumping straight with, oh my gosh, what are you going to do about this? This is crazy. So to not elevate beyond what they're doing is a big step as well. And that's, like I said, with shame, we don't want to put shame on them when they're not feeling shame to start with. That could be horrible. Or not just shame, but panic or trauma as well. That's going to be difficult. Before break, I just wanted to, so we've had Justin and Sarah. Before break, we had a late break, so we'll go on another few minutes. Who else can say something about what they did? Yes, Tamara.
Hello. I felt really lucky to get Ian. I don't know if he should have felt lucky to get me because I have been in and out of the class all night. So I was like bang on getting Ian. Thank you so much, Ian. Oh, look, we didn't look at the backstory of Belinda at all. We just went and ran with it. And as you said, Dwayne, we did assume that the relationship was already there, and we just sort of hooked in. Look, I think we both did really well. Look, I opened with consents and then just got into it and just tried to get Belinda to change her mind, to think about some alternatives. And then I asked her if she could agree to, like, we put a plan together, be a bit of a contract. You're happy to sign it? And can I chat with you tomorrow? Here are some other numbers that can help you in the interim as well. So.
Okay, so jumping in for both Tamara and Ian.
Sorry, and we went on and made sure that they were aware that the Belinda was aware that we had to report this.
All right, yeah.
So, and you know, in our case, Belinda was an more elderly woman with marital issues and stuff like that. So it was just a different scenario to what Justin and Sarah had.
That's
worked just as well.
fine.
I think we both got through. I think we both did really well. I can tell my style is very different to Tamara's, though. It's probably the male / female difference.
That's great. That's good. What would you need if you had another few minutes? Where would you go with it? If you had 2 more minutes, what would you be talking about, and where would you go?
I think I would have asked a few more open-ended questions and just got a little bit more of a feel. I tend to jump in and think I've got all the solutions. I work in crisis. Like, I've got to have the solutions because the person who's sitting in front of me, they got no solutions. That's how they've ended up with me. So I need to just sort of pull back a little bit. That's what I would do.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Russia and Nepal. Any feedback from what you did?
We just went straight with it. I did the counselor part because Nupur has already done it, so I was given more time. But I just wanted to ask more, like, from Nupur actually, because I wanted your feedback on my performance and see which areas I can
So according to me, I think you have covered up almost all the questions which are like supposed to be asked during any counseling session. But I think it's more about like the trust issues which we need to build up, and I think we have done pretty good during that conversation part. Like, as you said, it's gonna be one-to-one conversation, and whenever you don't feel comfortable, you can come to me, and if at all I'm giving your information, it's always your consent first, and then I can pass on your
information to the third party. So which were like really comforting for me and to build up my trust. So yeah, that's pretty much.
Okay.
Okay,
No
cool.
worries.
Thank you. So we'll go into break. After break, what I wanted to do is there's a few more slides with a couple of things that are important. After the slides, I was wanting to look at the personal stress management plan that is jumping back to this module now, that you might have finished, you might have completed, but I was wanting you to look at it and feedback it, whether you've done it before or not. I was going to put you into breakout rooms and talk about the stress management plan. Yeah, so we'll have a look at that after break. That's the main thing. See you later. So a few more slides. The last major thing for this module is the stress management plan, the personal stress management plan. And once you know a personal stress management plan inside out, you can obviously talk somebody through filling one in and the reasons why certain things are there. So that's the key thing. To carry on, there's just a few slides that lead up to it. So that's where you got to. Seems like last week we were talking about alternative health options, but it was only about an hour ago. You mentioned most of these, I think. So support in the workplace, obviously, if supervisor doesn't work, HR doesn't work, then taking it up and up and up in the workplace. If that's not working, then we've got to go external. Going to counselling. There's whether it's occupational health, like that side of counselling, that is a possibility. But there's also like specific psychologists or a lot of life coaches. Life coach used to be a gimmick, like role or job that people didn't really. It used to be like an alternative therapy, I guess. But a lot of life coaches are now qualified as psychologists as well, and they'll do a bit of both. So whether it's a professional that can talk to us in a like career-sided life coach, they could well be a psychologist as well, like a clinical psychologist that's really, really going to be helpful for that person that's dealing with some workplace stress. Could be ideal. So whether it's inside or outside of the organization, there are options. There's potentially a lot of options there. So to minimize stress, communicate with relevant people in the workplace that can help you, or get outside. Delegate, communicate your needs. So there's like a progression. If you can't delete the task, if you can't get rid of it, then try and delegate it on. If you can't delegate it on, delay it. If you can't delay it, then you might put it as a different priority. So delegate, communicate your needs. If you've got too much coming on your plate, then it's a lot about communication and assertiveness and saying, look, I can do this as to the best of my ability, but adding this and this and this on, that can't work. And we're not going to get all of it done professionally. We're just going to get all of it done half-baked. When we get an answer that is something like, yeah, well, that's tough, that's just what we have to do, then obviously there's something that they're getting a lot on when we're talking to our supervisor, and our supervisor or manager is saying, it's just the way it works, that's what we're dealing with here. Then that's almost them and they're like crying out saying, look, you don't even know what I've got to deal with. You're complaining about that on your plate, I've got a massive amount of stress that's way beyond, and they're just passing all the rubbish down to us. It doesn't mean it's right, but we've got to remember that they might be dealing with a bigger amount of stress. That's one side. Another side could be that when we're assertive and say, look, I can deal with this, but not this, otherwise it's all going to get done really badly, then there is often the option of, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. Let's work it out so that everything gets done professionally. You don't need to be the one that does these extra jobs. We were passing it to you because everything else gets done professionally. And then there's the workplace rule that 20% of the people do 80% of the work anyway. And if something needs to get done professionally, it's going to get sent to somebody that's already really, really busy. And then they know it's going to get done at least 50% work. So to minimize stress, we've got to got to look at ourselves as well, because we know the level of stress that we can take, or we have to learn this level of stress that we can take, which means we've got to put breaks in and not just plow through trying to get to the end of the task. We've got to put breaks in, hydration. The brain's 90% water. So is a lettuce. So I don't really know how that all works, but the brain's 90% water. So if we're dehydrated and we haven't drunk any water in the past hour or two, then we know that we're not going to be thinking logically. We're going to have a good life balance. We're going to get plenty of good nutrition. We've got to recognize when fatigue comes in. We've got to know not just our signs of stress, but we've got to recognize our fatigue coming in. With minimizing stress and looking at yourself, it's like the honesty is that sometimes it's my bad management of stress that makes stress worse. And when I think personally, I can talk about examples of if I've got a schedule and I'm working to it, I'm fine. And I can allocate certain tasks through that schedule, and then I'm happy. I know exactly what I'm doing, and I can work to the schedule that I've laid out. If anybody messes with that schedule, that increases my stress. So when I go to work and we've got a schedule and a plan laid out, and this is what we're doing, whether it's Monday to Friday, or I get to work at 8 o'clock and then we've got a schedule for the day mapped out, then if I can stick to that schedule, I'm happy. There isn't an intense amount of stress there, so it's good. But life doesn't work to a schedule, and community service work does not work to a schedule. In a rehab, when I would have my day planned out, and I've got my day planned out. I know exactly what I'm doing before lunch, after lunch, and I'm going to get all of that done today. And then you walk in the door and they say, okay, we've got the fire alarm at 9 o'clock. So that's going to take half an hour. So that's going to mess with everybody's plans, but we've got a fire alarm, a fire drill organized. And you think, great. And that's any workplace. That's not necessarily community services. And every business has to have a fire drill. Or you walk in and they walk in at 8 o'clock and the briefing says, okay, cancel your plans for the morning. We're going to have what's it called? Room inspections. And in a rehab, room inspections are thorough. And we're looking for contraband, whether that's anything illegal or whether it's substance abuse, substance connected. And you think, no, I don't want to spend my whole morning searching people's rooms. I had this to do, and I had this to do, and I had this to do. So when I'm choosing to work in this place that I know everything can go off schedule just instantly, I have to be able to manage that. And I had to figure out, okay, how do I deal with that stress that's come just because people aren't working to my plans? So I have to deal with myself. Or there's other things, and we get in and 8 o'clock in the morning, say, right, today is cancelled. We're going out for the day, and we're going to the beach. We've got a staff development day. Is one of the worst things. No matter what other job I'm in, it's like, okay, I had this, and this to do, and I wanted to get all of this done today, and I can't because we've got a staff development day, and I won't get any work done at all. And that's because other people won't work to my plan. So minimizing stress, it's realizing that people can't work to my plan, and I have to work to other people's plans sometimes. So it's trying to figure out a level of honesty that says, I know how to stress myself and I know how other people stress me out. And when I get stressed and it's not their fault and it's my fault, I still need to figure out how to deal with it. So to minimize stress, consider your well-being. Well-being is the zones of health, physical health, emotional health, mental, social. Do I feel happy at work? If I'm not happy at work, then what do I need to do about it? Do I have a work-life balance? There's always going to be a balance. It could be unhealthy life, it could be unhealthy work. Do I make time for other hobbies? Do I look forward to coming to work? So they're like test questions for, is my life spiraling a little bit? And then flexibility, which is what I was talking about. So just being flexible with the people around me so that I don't cause my own stress. Hours of work, start and finish times, and the location. Just to finish, rather than there's a few more slides, but like I said, the important thing is this. So this is the assessments for this module. So whether you've done it or not, first of all, task 2 is it says it's a project, but it's just a stress management plan. How do I deal with stress? Task 3 is, how do I deal with a stressful situation? How do I deal with another stressful situation? And then evaluating this stress management plan.